All right, so for this task, we need to just identify what the relationship between the two angles is. There's an angle A, there's an angle B. What's the relationship between them? How are they connected? We have several options here. Let's write them down. First, we've got supplementary. Supplementary. And that means that they add up to 180 degrees. And then we have complementary, which means they add up to 90. And so these two angle relationships just simply talk about how the sums are related. It has nothing to do with how the angles are necessarily connected to each other, right? How they are, on the paper. Now the rest of these do deal with that kind of thing. So we're going to separate them out here. We've got vertical angles. Now in vertical angles, when it makes an X, right? The angles that are across from each other, either up, down, or left, right, they're called vertical angles. Right? Next we have a linear pair. Right? You see the word line in the middle of that. So when two angles come together to form a straight line, right? Like that, right? When they come together to form a straight line, then they're called a linear pair. Linear pairs, by the way, are also supplementary. They add up to 180 degrees. And then we have adjacent. Adjacent. That just means that the two angles are next door neighbors, right? They're just connected to each other. All right. And it's possible for a pair of angles to be many of these things all at once. Okay. So for example, a linear pair is also adjacent, and they happen to be supplementary. Let's take a look. Let's see. For our first one here, these two angles, they're right next door to each other, so they are adjacent. Now, they're not a linear pair because B would have to include this over here to fill out the whole straight line thing. So they're not a linear pair, they're not supplementary, there's nothing to indicate that they are complementary, and they're certainly not vertical angles. So adjacent is all we have. Here, now these two angles are also, B and A, are also right next door to each other, so they are adjacent. Now you'll notice that they also come together to make a straight line, so they are a linear pair. And because they're a linear pair, they are also supplementary. Okay, supplementary. Add up to 180 degrees. Okay, this pair here, well, let's see. Now, they do kind of, in a sense, touch, right? Just at that single point right there, but that doesn't mean adjacent. Adjacent means they share a side. Okay? And these don't share a side. Here are the two sides for angle B. Here are the two sides for angle A, right? And they don't share any sides. Okay? These, notice how there's this X in the middle, and they are right across from each other in that X. These are examples of vertical angles. Vertical angles, by the way, have the same measure. Right? They're the same size. We can use that to solve problems later on. Here, A and B, now they are right next door to each other. See how they share this common side between them? So they are adjacent. Now, there's nothing here to indicate that they add up to 90 degrees, so they're not complementary. They don't come together to make a straight line, so they aren't a linear pair. They don't appear to be they don't appear to be supplementary. They're certainly not vertical angles, so adjacent's all we have. All right, let's see what else we got here. Oh, let's see down here. Now notice how the sides for angle A, kind of draw them in there, and the sides for angle B, oh, they make that X thing again. So these are vertical angles. Now, they do look like they are both right angles, which would mean that they add up to 180 degrees, which would make them supplementary. But we don't have anything in the diagram to tell us that, just how it looks, right? It may look like that. It could be like 89.9 degrees or something like that. Almost 90, but not quite 90. So unless there's a marking on the diagram to tell us that they're 90, we don't know that they're 90, right? So we can't say that they're supplementary. Now here, you'll see A and B, they are adjacent. And because this is a right angle over here, and this straight line tells us that that's a 90-degree angle, which means that this on the other side is also a 90-degree angle. And B and A, they come together to make that 90-degree angle, so they are complementary, meaning they add up to 90 degrees. Their measures add up to 90 degrees. All right, moving on here. Okay, we have angles A and B. They share this common side, so they are adjacent. They also, their other sides here and here make a straight line, so they are a linear pair, and linear pairs also happen to be supplementary. Okay. Next door here, notice how here are the two sides for angle B, and over here you got the two sides for angle A, and the sides of angle A and angle B make straight lines, or they come together in that sort of X shape. These are vertical angles. All right, so let's take a look at what else we got here. Set that over here. Okay. All right, here A and B, they share that common side, so they are adjacent. Their other two sides form a straight line, so they are a linear pair, and as a linear pair, they are supplementary. Okay, over here, A and B, they share a common side, so they are adjacent, but we don't have anything to indicate that they are complementary. They certainly aren't supplementary, meaning that would mean that their other sides formed a straight line. That's not the case, so looks like that's all we have, adjacent. Okay, A and B. Okay, well, there's a common side, so they are adjacent. Their other two sides that they don't share, right? Those come together to make a straight line. So linear pair, and of course we have supplementary because they add up to 180 degrees, their measures. All right, these two angles, A and B, they share a common side, so they are adjacent, but we don't have any other information about them. Not supplementary, not complementary. I mean, I suppose not. Very unlikely. All right, but certainly nothing there to indicate that, so we can't make that claim. Down here, 13, it's the same kind of deal. They are adjacent, but we don't have enough information to say anything else about them. Here, A and B, well, notice they share a common side. Adjacent, notice that their other two sides form a straight line. So linear pair, and you guessed it, supplementary. Okay, let's take a look at a couple more. Down here you'll notice that there's this little right angle symbol here, which means that these two angles, they share a common side, right? So they are adjacent. And because together they form a right angle, they are complementary. Right? They add up to 100 or add up to 90 degrees. Over here, hey, same deal. Actually, they share a common side, so they are adjacent, and because the two sides over here that they don't share form a right angle, they are complementary. It's just a couple things to remind you of. Angles that are supplementary, now every time you have a linear pair, right, they always add up to 180 degrees, so they're supplementary. But supplementary doesn't tell us anything about how the angles are actually arranged. I could have just any two random angles, right? And if they add up to 180 degrees, they're supplementary. They don't have to be connected in any way. Same deal with complementary. They don't have to be connected in any way to be complementary, right? So supplementary and complementary tell us about the sums of the two measures, and that's it. Whereas linear pair, vertical angles, and adjacent tell us something about how the angles are related to each other on the plane. Linear pair means, like this, that they're the two sides that they don't share, they are adjacent, and the two sides that they don't share form a straight line. Adjacent simply means that they share a side, and that they don't overlap, by the way. I mean, for example, if I did something like this, right? These two angles, I didn't really share a side in that diagram. Here. If I've got like this angle right here and this bigger angle right here, they do share like one side off to the side, but they're not considered adjacent because they overlap. Okay. Probably that's just going to be confusing later. All right. And then, of course, what was the other one? Vertical angles, where they don't share any sides, but their sides form this X shape, right? Two pairs of, well, it's technically two pairs of opposite rays, and it makes two straight lines. Okay. All right. Well, good luck on your own angle relationship pair identifying. Cool.